In this video, we're going to create a custom hook library. I'm pretty excited about this because hooks have become such an integral part of working with React and allows you to easily reuse your code. Smarter, not harder, right? If you're just jumping in, this is part 6 of a multi-part series for creating a custom audio player in React. In the first video, we did a bulk of the work styling and building the audio player. And since then, we've done a little debugging, added chapter marks to the display, and created links to specific time chapters, and created links to specific time codes. Of course, links to all of these are in the description below. And if I'm being honest, you'd probably get the most out of this video if you went back and watched the first video at least, but it's not a prerequisite. And even if you just want to jump right into all things hooks, you should still be able to follow along and get something out of this video. All right, let's do this. If you're new to the Self-Teach Me channel, my name is Amy Dutton. I'm a web designer and developer. If you're looking to get into this space, sometimes it's hard to know where to start and what resources to trust. I want to help you level up and get to where you want to be. If this sounds interesting to you, hit the subscribe button below. And last thing, before we jump into the code, as you're working through the content in this video, I've included timestamps in the description below. Feel free to jump around, especially if you're coming back for reference. If you want to follow along, you can jump over to GitHub, link in the description, and grab the code. This video picks up right where the last video left off. So simply copy the link from GitHub and jump over to your terminal. I'm already in my projects directory, so I'm going to type git clone and I'm going to paste in that link. Once that's done, I'm going to navigate to my project directory and run npm install. That will download all of my project dependencies. Now I can run npm run dev and I'm off to the races. And our project is now available at localhost 3000. Let's open our project within VS Code and take a look at our audio player component. So that's in the components directory called audioplayer.js. So at the top, we have a bunch of functions that makes our audio player work. And then at the bottom, we have our JSX. All of our styles are in an external style sheet called audioplayer.module.css. We're going to pull out or abstract all of the functions and turn them into a custom hook library that we can use and create several different types of audio players. So first, let's create a folder inside the root of our project directory called hooks. This will help keep things nice and organized. Then let's create a file inside called audiohook.js. And really, you can name this file whatever you want. And normally I would probably just name this audioplayer.js, but I don't want you to get confused with our actual component. Before we get too deep into the code, let's talk a little bit about what a hook is and how to use it. If we want to learn by example, let's look at a hook we've already used, use state. In our audio player component, we're using use state 3 times to set our state. We're using it to store the state of the player, the duration, and the current time. In each case, we use state. It returns an array with 2 values. One holds the value itself, and the other allows us to update the state. So as I mentioned, the use state hook returns an array. And this is great when you have a small number of items you're returning. So in our case, 2. And this is important because order matters. With the use state hook, the first item in the array is always the variable name, and the second item is how you change or set the state. But you can always create hooks that return objects. And this is useful when you're returning a lot of properties or methods, and you may or may not need all of them. So for us, we want to move all the logic from our audio player into our hook. So that's a lot. Plus, some of the audio players that we create may or may not need all the functionality we're providing. So returning an object is perfect. Let's create a constant. So we'll say const, and then we need to give it a name. In React, the naming convention for hooks is use, and whatever name you want to give it. You can always tell it's a hook when it starts with the word use. So we'll call ours use audio player. Then we can stub it out. So just like a normal function, it can take parameters and return something. And we already said that we want to return an object. But if you were to return an array instead, you would use square brackets. Okay. We need to export this so that we can use it and reference it. I always use named exports. That way I never have to wonder if my component is a default or named export. They're always named. Consistency in code is a good thing. So I'll say export use audio player. Cool. And actually, let's go ahead and set this up within our audioplayer.js file. At the very top of our file, we want to import our hook. So we'll say import use audio player from hooks audio hook. Perfect. Right below our references, let's add some code to use it. So right here, we'll say const use audio. So right now we're just returning an empty object, so we have nothing to do structure out of it. Let's start by giving our hook some functionality. We'll just work our way through the audioplayer.js file and start moving pieces over to our hook file. So I'm going to go into split pane view to get our component on one side and our hook on the other. That way we can see both files at the same time. So up first, we have our state, and we can just move all of this over. So I'm going to hit cut and paste this right above our return statement. But in order to get this to work, we have to import use state at the top of our hook file. So I'm going to say import use state from React. For each of these items in our state, we need to be able to access them within our audioplayer.js component. So let's go down to our return object and add is playing, duration, and current time. And these are all of our pieces of state. Then within our audio player component, we need to be able to reference these. So at the top of our file, I can add these to our object. So we're just destructuring here that we exported from use audio player. So I'm going to say is playing, duration, and current time. The next piece we want to move over is our references. I'm going to scroll back up. Let's grab all of our references here, cut and paste. So in order to use these, we'll also need to import the use ref at the top of our file, very similar to how we imported use state. Now, the thing about our audio player and our progress bar ref is that we need to be able to reference these within our actual audio player component since they're tied directly to DOM elements. Our animation ref is a little bit different in that it will only be used inside the hook itself. So down at the bottom of the file where we're returning our object, let's also return audio player and our progress bar refs. Okay, then within our audio player file, let's destructure those as well. So let's come down here and add audio player and progress bar. Now, when we get into our component, these will be available so that we can attach them to our DOM elements. And that code will still work. Okay, let's come back to our use effects, which is this next block of code right here. And the first function that we run into is called calculate time. And this is pretty easy. Basically, we'll just cut and paste, moving our function over to our hook. Then we want to export it from our hook. So we'll just add it to our list of exports. Cool. And then, of course, we need to destructure it. So we're going to come back up here where we have our use audio and add calculate time to the list. Next up, we have our play function. So we can just cut and paste. And if we look at the contents of our function, you'll notice it's referencing our audio player, which we've already defined, and our animation ref, which we've already defined as well. So all good there. The play function is really triggered by the toggle play pause function. Let's cut this and paste this into our hook. And let's walk through it and make sure everything is accounted for. So at the top, it's referencing is playing and set is playing, which are pieces of state that we've already pulled over. Then we refer to our audio player and animation ref, which are references. So everything's good there too. So since this needs to be accessible within our component, let's make sure that we export it. And then within our audioplayer.js file, we want to destructure it. So the next method we have is our while playing. Same as before, cut, paste. We're referencing our progress bar and our audio player. Both have already been defined. We have our change player current time method. We haven't pulled that over yet, but we will. And then we have our animation ref, which we've already defined. While playing is an internal method. It gets called by other pieces of our hook, so it's not something that our hook needs to export. Our audio player doesn't need to be aware of its existence. So moving on, we have a change range function. So I'm going to cut and paste that. And we've already created our audio player reference and progress bar reference. There's our change player current time method again, and we'll get to that. Our audio player needs to be able to call this method. This gets called on our input range element anytime a change is made. So if we come down here and look, here is our input type range, and it calls the change range function. So we need to be able to, you guessed it, export it from our hook and import it inside our audio player. You're probably starting to see a pattern emerge as we refactor. We're just cutting and pasting our elements into our hook, making sure that all the elements are accounted for and exporting what we need within our component, and then pulling them out by destructuring them within our audio player component itself. So to keep this from getting too monotonous, I'm just going to grab all the remaining pieces at once and cut and paste. So if we come down here, I'm going to grab all of these functions, cut and paste. And then if we look at this, we have our change player current time method. If we look through this, there's our change player current time method that we needed. And I think everything else is accounted for. We have references to our progress bar and our change range method that we've already pulled over. Cool. Now we have these 4 other methods. And the only 2 that we need to export and give our component access to are the back 30 and forward 30 methods. These both get called on our back 30 and forward 30 buttons. So that's down here. We have our on-click back 30, and here are on-click forward 30. So let's make sure that we export those out and import these over here. Okay, let's give everything a save, and we can test this out within the browser. Fingers crossed. Use audio is not defined. Ooh, look at that. We named our hook. Yeah, there we go. Use audio, and this should be called use audio down here. Perfect. Let's give that a save and come back over. Use audio is not defined. Let's make sure that our input, there we go, set up correctly. Time travel is not defined. So we want to make sure that we export that over here and import that over here. So we're just kind of letting our error messages tell us what we forgot or what we glossed over. So now if we give that a save and come back to our browser, give it a refresh, time travel is not a function. Oh, let's give this file a save. Okay. Set duration is not defined. Okay, so it needs to be able to access our state up here where we say set duration. So we can export this guy out. I bet that is coming from within our use effect, which we'll tackle in a second. So over here, I'm going to say set duration. Give that a save and come back. Hit a refresh, and there's our component. Awesome. So next up, let's walk through our use effects. And this is actually very similar to our functions. So at the top of our audio hooks file, I'm going to import use effect. Then let's cut and paste our use effects, and just to check and make sure that the metadata is getting loaded. So I'm going to cut this guy. Let's paste this right below our references. And I'm going to add a comment right here just to document what we're doing. So this is grabbing our metadata. So I'm going to give that a save. Let's save our component over here, and let's give this a refresh. Perfect. So everything's still getting loaded. Okay, awesome. Now let's move over our other use effect for when we reach the end of our file. So that's this guy right here. Let's add a comment, and let's cut and paste this into our hook file. Give that a save. And actually, as I was writing the script for this video, I realized there are a couple of bugs within this use effect. First, we need to make sure that the current time and the duration are both numbers. If one is a string and one is a number, then they won't be equal. So we can cast this into a number by wrapping both variables in a number function. And this just comes from JavaScript straight out of the box. Then we can change our double equals to triple equals. So this makes our code just a little bit tighter. The second thing I realized is that sometimes if the file takes a little longer to load, it will check the current time and duration before the metadata has loaded, and it will read duration as 0. Yikes. So we also want to make sure that the duration is greater than 0. So let's grab this and say when the duration is greater than 0 and the current time and the duration are equal. So give that a save, and let's test this out within the browser. So if we come to the end of the file and it's playing, hits the end, and it goes back to the beginning and it stops. Perfect. The last use effect is for handling time jumps. So that's this one over here. So let's add a little comment. And we have to do a little bit of work on this one, but in the end, I think the end result will be a little bit better. So let's start by creating a new piece of state. So I'm going to call this one time jump. Say set time jump equals use state, and we'll just default that to 0. Then within our hooks file, let's create a use effect. So let's just come down here and we want to say use effect. Let's kind of stub this out. So we have a function here and it takes an array of when it needs to be updated. And let's just cut the inside of this and paste it over here. So we're essentially getting rid of this conditional. Let me give that a save. And we want this to update. Let's move this up. We want this to update anytime our time jump piece of state updates. Okay, so let's say we don't set time jump to anything. We want it to start from the very beginning. Well, this works because at the top, we're defaulting our state to 0. But let's say that we want it to jump to 20 seconds. So if the state is changed to 20, then it will have to run our time travel function, jumping to 20 seconds. It will set the player state to is playing, and then it will start playing. Awesome. So this should work. The only thing that we need to do is we need to account for how to update the state. So we'll need to export our set time jump from our hook file, and then we can get rid of this. Then we need to destructure it so that when we call our hook, we'll have access to it. So we're already passing in a time jump variable through our props up here. But we need to be able to update the state to the value that's getting passed in. So again, in our audio player component, let's add another use effect. So we're going to put a use effect down here. So we're going to add another use effect down here, and let's kind of stub this out. We want to say that anytime our time jump prop that's getting passed in is updated, it needs to update our time jump in our hook. Okay, phew. So let's give these both a save. And okay, so if we test this out within the browser, so if we do T20, okay, perfect. That jumps down. But it looks like, let's get rid of this. It's starting at 38 seconds, which is very strange. So if we console log this out just to see what value we're getting, give that a save. And check this out. It looks like it loads as 0 and then gets set to undefined. So it looks like we do need that conditional after all. So let's come back here and we want to say as long as it is defined and it's greater than 0. It should resolve our issue. Let's give that a save and we'll refresh. And we start back at 0, which is perfect. 20 starts where it's supposed to. Awesome. Okay, sweet. The hard part is done, but let's tidy up our code and make it a little bit more reusable. The first thing that I want to do is alphabetize the items that we're destructuring out of the use audio hook. I have an extension within VS Code that lets me select all of these items, and I can hit Command-Shift-P and type alphabetize, and it will sort all of our items for me. Then I want to alphabetize all the items over here within my component. Give that a save. I alphabetize a lot. I like to alphabetize props I'm destructuring, items I'm importing or exporting, and CSS properties. And the reason I do that is because it makes it easy to see what's included in the list and what's not, because I know exactly where that value should appear in the list. With that said, don't go too crazy alphabetizing. For example, you don't want to alphabetize the order that your CSS classes are listed in because that affects specificity. I also wouldn't change the order that I'm defining my functions. Your linter, if you're using one, likes for you to define a function before you use it. Before we wrap everything up, I want to do one more thing. I'm going to pull out some of the items we've hard-coded within our audio player component and stick that within the parent element so that we can pass different parameters into our audio player, making it more reusable. So first, let's pull up our chapters array. So that's right here at the top of the component. And I'm going to cut this and open up our index.js file. And this is where we're actually calling the audio player component and placing it on the page. So I'm going to paste this definition right above the return statement. And then we can jump down to our audio player and we want to pass this in as a prop. Then we need to go back over to our component and let it know that we are expecting this. I'm going to say chapters. And now let's grab the source off of our audio element. And we want this to be a track. We want to pass it in with the name of track. Give that a save. Let's go over to our index.js file. And let's call this track. Paste that guy in, and then we want to pass that to our component. Give that a save. Our audio player component might get confused if the chapters array or the track string don't exist. So one thing we can do is to define our prop types. And this is always good practice. A couple of reasons. One, it serves as documentation. So if another developer jumps into our code, they'll easily be able to see what props they can pass in and their corresponding types. Number two, by defining our prop types, VS Code and our error messages within Chrome become more valuable because we're telling both what we need and what we're expecting. So if those things don't line up, our compiler will tell us. This is pretty simple, and I've actually set up a couple of snippets within VS Code to make this even easier. I'll include a link to a gist that includes my snippets within the description below. Okay, so at the top of our audio player component, I'm going to type IP for import prop types. Then below our component, I'm going to type define props. And that will expand to give me 2 blocks. And also notice how it automatically grabbed the name of my file to match my component. Pretty handy. In the first block, we need to list all of our props that we're passing in. And in the second block, we can define what the default values look like. So our props are chapters, time jump, and track. Chapters is an array, so we could just say prop types.array, but let's get a little bit more specific. That way it can check to see if the array that we're passing has all the information that we need. So if we change this to say array of, and then our individual chapter will look like a prop type with a shape of start, and that's a number, and end, which is also a number. Then our time jump is a number, and our track is a string. But for our track, I'm going to tack on a little something special. I'm going to say that it is required because without the track, there's no point in having the audio player at all. So now we just need to add our defaults. So our chapters can be an empty array, and our time jump we can set to 0. And then since our track is required, we don't have to provide a default prop. So I'm going to give that a save, and let's just make sure everything's still working. Unexpected token, comma. Oh, we need to make sure that up here, when we reorganized, we didn't have a comma at the end of our line. And I bet we're having the same issue over here. There we go. So give that a save. Perfect. Awesome. So everything is working. We had t equals 20, so it jumped to 20 seconds. Perfect. Okay, now you can see how our audio player file itself has reduced the file size considerably. We don't have all those functions at the top. We're just importing all the elements that we need, and then we have the styling for our player. So if we ever want to create another audio player with a different styling, we can reuse this hook with all these functions and state again, which is super cool. Perfect. We are finally done. As always, the code from this video is posted on GitHub. Link in the description below. Feel free to fork it, download it, modify it, use it, whatever, it's yours. And if you like this video and want to see more videos on web design and development, be sure to hit the subscribe button below. Hit the bell icon to receive notifications when new videos are posted. Until then, keep coding. I think that's it for that.